What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be reviewing the Athletics 3-round mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. Below my face is my board. Below that are all the great ways to get involved in the community. Links will also be in the description below. Let's get right into this because we're doing this during my lunchtime, and we might as well be able to make the most of it, right? Let's do it. So starting out with the #1 overall selection, we have the Chicago Bears going Caleb Williams. For the sake of time, this is a guaranteed pick. Let's save a little bit more of the analysis for other picks, right? Sorry, Bears fans. You have another 2 picks that we'll discuss, though. The Commanders, this is a live reaction, by the way. Commanders go Drake Maye. I think that I've made this very clear in a lot of my videos. I think Drake Maye is the best long-term investment, but in the terms of the short term, which the Commanders, since they're probably going to be a little bit more safe since it's a new regime, I think that they will still end up going for Jayden Daniels. Drake Maye, though, has the higher ceiling, needs to be a little bit more consistent. New England Patriots go Jayden Daniels, so essentially it's the top 3 quarterbacks going 1, 2, and 3. So it kind of makes sense. The Patriots do need to get something a little bit more upgraded at the signal caller position. The Vikings then trade up for J.J. McCarthy. Again, I would spend a little bit more time on these, but we've talked about this ad nauseum, and it's just so much better for us to, I mean, this actually includes a 2025 first-round pick, which, if you look at actually the trade value chart, that's not the case. But, it is what it is. J.J. McCarthy, like we've talked about this stuff ad nauseum. The Vikings move up for their quarterback. It just seems like it's written in the books. Pick number 5, the Falcons trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. That is unique. Okay, I actually don't mind that too much because I think the Falcons essentially need an edge rusher as well as a corner. You're going to essentially see what we're going to have to do with the 3rd-round pick, but the Chargers move back are still in striking range. I mean, I think for the Chargers, if you're probably going to still end up getting a wide receiver, you should probably stick and pick with the best one, but for the Falcons, specifically the Falcons' point of view, this is actually really intriguing. You got some dudes to come on the squad for a year or 2 max, but it's just Drake London and Darnell Mooney that are the longer term options. Marvin Harrison Jr. would complement those 2 very well. Again, if I'm the Chargers, I wouldn't be moving out of there. But the Bears move up with the Giants to select Malik Neighbors. Another move I wouldn't do if I were the New York Giants, but we'll see what they do. But the Bears end up trading pick 75. Okay, well, there's the other analysis pick that I was going to talk about. But the Giants end up trading out. The Bears move up and select Malik Neighbors. I think the Bears could be perfectly fine in this situation. Yeah, you probably need to get a future at safety, but Byard there. You're perfectly fine. This team needs maybe one more edge rusher, and again, you have enough money to spend on an edge rusher if need be, and I'd be perfectly fine with this because he is a super weapon. Wide receiver goes at 7 as well, with the Titans going Rome Odunze back to back to back. I think the Titans should go offensive tackle. However, we're going to see what they do in the rest of this because Tennessee seems pretty geared towards going after a star wide receiver. I remember that Brett Coleman loved the idea of Rome Odunze going to the Bengals. The former OC is now the head coach of the Titans. Could be pretty cool right there. Chargers, but they move back and select Joe Alt. I think there's actually a lot of talented right tackles in this class. I would not make this move personally. I've been literally grinding the tape on re-evals on offensive tackles, going into even the UDFA guys, and this class might be the best offensive tackle class I've seen. I don't think that there's a big discrepancy between Joe Alt's value at pick number 8, even with the trade back and all the picks, and what you can get maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. Pick number 9, the Giants go Brock Bowers. Intriguing option. You end up getting that extra 3rd round pick and then another pick from the Bears, and you still get probably the best player on the board. So, it could end up working out for you. You just did end up giving up on Malik Neighbors, though. That's where it's going to start, having to come into question as to whether you really think it's valuable enough. At 10, the Jets pick Olu Fashanu. I love Olu Fashanu. People talk about this as like, oh, you're not getting an impact player right away. If one of those tackles goes down, you damn well sure you are. And based on history, based on age, just based on the statistics, it is a high likelihood that it would happen. So if it doesn't happen, this is a great thing. But unfortunately, there's a high probability Olu would start. People who try to act like it's bad to go after offensive line for the Jets, like, like, it really, like, I mean, Aaron Rodgers made a lot with a little in terms of weaponry, and he's always had David Bakhtiari there. Like, he's never really thrived without offensive line talent. The best thing you can do for an old quarterback is to give him protection and then let his brilliance be able to make receivers more open than having to pray that the receivers are open because the O-line can't do shit. But the Cardinals traded back, ended up getting Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold is my number 3 player in the class. I love him to death. This is a great move for the Cardinals. You get your extra picks. Maybe you missed out on the receivers. Boo-hoo. There's really good ones in this class. At 12, the Rams end up going Dallas Turner through a trade-up. The Rams are always looking to move their first-round pick. So whether it's up, whether it's back, we'll see. But Dallas Turner is a phenomenal edge rusher. He would be a great addition there in Los Angeles. I would just say maybe it's not worth sending 52 because you might get one of the top 3 guys. And unless you think Dallas is that superior, maybe you could do it then, but it's a little bit tough to pass up on keeping that second round pick and then still getting his top tier edge rusher. Talifuaga goes to the Raiders, top tier interior offensive lineman with right tackle potential. The Raiders can never do wrong by upgrading the offensive line. You lost your line coach, that sucks, but he's a good player. The Eagles then trade up for Quinion Mitchell. Dude, you guys have like 8 or 9 corners on the roster. Like, you have a ton of corner versatile options. That's the only thing that kicks me in the balls because I think this would be an A++++ move. But right now, the real position you need to target is edge rusher. After this year, you're essentially down to Huff and, Nolan Smith. That's not good. So you need to be able to at least enforce it a little bit. But the Eagles getting Quinion Mitchell, you're still getting your corner number 1. I still would be happy with this. It's just, damn, how are you going to fit all of those DBs on your roster? Like, you're going to have to cut some very talented guys if this ends up happening, and you traded pick 50 as well. I don't know about that. Colts then end up going Jared Verse. I do think the Eagles would have to trade up to 14 to get him because this would be a great fit for Quinion Mitchell. The Colts need an edge one. They do. You had 4 guys with 7 sacks, and then now you just need to have a head honcho there. 5th-year contract coming up for Kwity Paye as well. Jared Verse would be a great guy to bring in for that. Seahawks then go Troy Fautanu. He's a very talented guy who can kick into guard for the short run and move out to tackle in the long. It would be a great outcome if you could end up having Troy Fautanu never play tackle. But in case of injury, you at least have a guy who's, position versatile. At pick number 17, the Jaguars go Byron Murphy. I think with even adding Eric Armstead, I think this is just a little bit early for that. You need a wide receiver 1 still. Still need to get a top-tier corner. Top 2 are off the board, so I understand the sentiment against going after that. But wide receiver is that's the move you got to make. But Byron Murphy's a great player. At pick number 18, the Bengals go Nate Wiggins. Again, a team that needs a right tackle, a receiving weapon in the long run. I just don't really believe that this is the best move for having a smaller defensive back because you already have a couple really good ones on the field. But he's a good player. Nate Wiggins is a great player. I have nothing against him. Broncos traded back and ended up getting Bo Nix. I don't think this is from Las Vegas necessarily, right? Unless they traded back up. No? Okay, so it's from the Los Angeles Rams. I think that was a quick typo. We all make mistakes, right? This is from the Rams. Broncos traded back and ended up getting Bo Nix. I think that's the smart thing to do, honestly. You at least get some extra draft capital, and then you still get your quarterback. Steelers go J.C. Latham, who I think is one of the top right tackles in the class, if not the top actual pure right tackle. Super young, super talented. This class is super loaded, though, so I would not mind going after a receiver in round 1. Dolphins go Graham Barton. Very talented, versatile offensive line piece. I think he's as good as a tackle as he is on the interior of the offensive line. I don't see his traits translating to the interior as well as maybe some other people do, but Graham Barton's a good player. He'd be a good Miami Dolphin. Saints then end up going Amarius Mims. They need help at offensive tackle. No cartilage in Ryan Ramchick's knee, so RIP to that. Amarius Mims would end up probably starting this year. Cardinals then end up going Brian Thomas Jr., so they ended up lucking out that Brian Thomas ends up falling. But the Cardinals, if they end up making that move and ending up getting, Brian Thomas and Terrion Arnold rather than just getting, Marvin Harrison, I think that is a worthy trade. Then we got the Cowboys going Tyler Guyton, tackle out of Oklahoma. I think that you don't need to go after this because I trust Tyler Smith to kick out to offensive tackle. You could go JPJ here, but I do understand that, hey, I'd rather have 2 tackles on my team than technically 2 interior offensive guys in case Tyler Smith doesn't end up translating to tackle as well as maybe you want over an entire season. But we've already seen him there, and he was good. Green Bay Packers then go Cooper DeJean, the standard stick and pick. I respect it. Buccaneers go Latu. He's actually going to be moving up my board. After watching more of the Senior Bowl reps back, I mean, this guy, like, he is just such a smart player. I can understand the Edge 1 comments. The lower power generation is scary with the short arms, but, you know, I think that the intuition, the IQ is pretty damn special. At pick 27, the Cardinals go Johnny Newton. Defensive interior is a great position to go for the Cardinals. This is as good as you can ask in the first round. Pick number 28, the Bills go A.D. Mitchell. As good of a pick as you can ever ask for the Bills. Lions go JPJ. They definitely need to have a contingency plan for Frank Ragnow, and Zeitler's there for a year. Then we got the Ravens going Kool-Aid McKinstry. They need some corner help. They need some offensive tackle help as well. But, going after a good player, you can never, ever mistake a team for doing that. Niners go Jordan Morgan, who I think should be a transfer to guard, but still a very talented tackle. At the very minimum, you're having him in the best situation possible in a team that likes to run the ball, likes to keep their guys mobile, and then has a great mentor there in Trent Williams. Pick number 32, the Chiefs go Ladd McConkey, one of the best wide receivers in the draft. I'm a big fan of his. Obviously got to meet him there in Mobile, Alabama, and perfectly fine if actually this ends up being the pick, even though I have some other receivers that maybe I'd like a little bit more for the Chiefs. At least they're helping out their guy. Xavier Worthy for the Panthers, I don't think helps out at all. I'd rather get a true X receiver like Keon Coleman, but that is just me. The Patriots then go Kingsley Sua-Matea. I think he'd end up being a right tackle. I don't trust him at left in the short run. Granted, I would trust Owenu to be able to help him develop, so this would actually be one of the better locations for him. Cardinals go Edgerrin Cooper. I love that because he could be a hybrid edge rusher as well, and this team needs a little bit of flexibility and has a lot of roles for Edgerrin Cooper to fill. Commanders go Chop Robinson. Not a super huge fan of Chop, if I'm going to be blunt. I think he's a DPR, has a ton of potential, but I don't think the Commanders' spot where he would necessarily flourish as well as I would hope. Dan Quinn's a great guy to coach him up, but I would wish that there was an actual bona fide edge rusher on the team that is elite to coach up Chop. Chargers go Zach Frazier. Center is not a bad position. Ended up, I think, bringing on Bozeman for 1 year, but Zach Frazier is coming off a leg break, so that wouldn't be bad. Titans go Patrick Paul. I'm not a fan of Patrick Paul. I hate to say it. I just never have been. Y'all know this. I really just want to show support, though. I'm not really trying to be more pessimistic in this draft season because what fun is that? I'd rather give more kudos to some players than knock other players down. I'm just not the biggest guy in Patrick Paul, but I do like the left tackle selection for the Titans. Panthers then go Darius Robinson, going after edge rushing help for the long run because you do have short-term guys in there right now. Not a bad idea whatsoever. He also has interior versatility, so I'm a fan of that. Commanders go Karan Amagaji. I think that he's a very talented left tackle. There's just a shit ton of really talented tackles in this draft. I would not blame the Commanders for doing this. Tore his quad. That's the only reason why I have him a little bit lower on my board. And, he's a Yale tackle. He's not going to have any form of polish coming out. So you will need him to develop really quickly, but I hope he ends up doing that. Packers go Cooper Beebe, a flexible offensive line piece. I honestly, it's hard to figure out what's good for the Packers except linebacker and defensive back. So I would go obviously linebacker here with Colson, but offensive line, not a bad position to go. They're just good at sniping it on day 3. Texans go Braden Fisk. He's a very talented player. I also watched back those Senior Bowl reps, and he's fun to watch. Just I didn't see that translate during the game tape. But again, when I go back to study defensive interior, which is going to be this week, because I've just decided to say screw all my brain cells, we will see. Chargers end up going Keon Coleman. So this ended up working out really damn well. You go after your star offensive tackle and you go after a star receiver. Granted, I do worry about a little bit of a lack of flexibility in terms of the roles in the receiving core. 44, the Raiders go Michael Penix. It's good value. You might as well. Very talented quarterback. Just injury history. Old. It is what it is. 45, the Saints go Chris Jenkins. You need defensive interior help. Chris Jenkins is a talented guy, but I think he fell off a little bit more than maybe I've given him credit for, or, too much credit for. Colts end up going Jatavian Sanders. This is way too early for Jatavian, in my opinion, but I do understand tight ends sometimes just go round 2. And, the Colts could be a destination for it. I'd go defensive back or wide receiver at that pick. 47, we got Newbin going to the Giants. Tested out too slow, reacts too slow to the run. I think that there's just, I think there's better options out there. But good position to target for the Giants. I'd prefer corner personally, but regardless, end up getting a top-tier corner in Ennis Rakestraw Jr. for the Jaguars at 48. That ends up, making me feel a little bit more comfortable about that first-round choice. Devondre Sweat got a DWI. I'm not a huge fan of players who, obviously neglect the health of themselves and others by, driving under the influence, but that's a conversation for another day. The Bengals could easily use Devondre Sweat. Might be there in the third round. Saints ended up going Kamari Lassiter. Flexible defensive back piece out of Georgia. Super smart player. Just 4.65 speed. It's very tough to swallow that pill. It's very tough. You got the Steelers then going Roman Wilson, wide receiver out of Michigan. He's someone who I've warmed up to. I had my top 17 receivers video or 16 receivers video, and, I think that I did underrate Roman Wilson. The more I watched him, I do think I need to give him a little more kudos. He's a good player. I think he'd actually work well for the Steelers, but I would deep down hope that we could get Xavier Leggett and then go after another player like Jamari Thrash to play in our slot as well. Roman Wilson's a good player, though. Broncos end up going after TJ Tampa, another player that I'm not the highest guy on, but, good size, good overall statistics. Broncos could use some extra DB help. The Philadelphia Eagles go Xavier Leggett. I think that's awesome. He's a great wide receiver 3 with deep speed. 54, the Browns go Malachi Corley. They're going to have a super loaded receiving core. The question is, this team has everything that's super loaded. Might as well just go BPA, but the question is, can Deshaun get back to Houston Deshaun? 55, the Dolphins go Mikey Sainer still. He's a fun, energetic player to have in a locker room. I just don't think he's ready day one. So you'd have to develop him, even though he's a little bit older, just a former wide receiver. Cowboys go Rucororo, getting some good versatility on defensive interior. You can also use him as an edge rusher, so I'd love to see how he would be deployed in a Zimmer system. Buccaneers end up going Junior Colson. Excellent value for a team that is looking for a contingency plan at linebacker. The Buccaneers are killing it. Packers go Max Melton. I love it. Great value. Getting him with his brother as well. Blake Fisher ends up going to the Texans. Houston, Texas. Oh, shit. He's going to Houston, Texas. I hope he ends up being picked by the Texans since they have 59th overall pick. Again, we all make mistakes and typos. I do that all the time. But Blake Fisher actually is someone who has ascended up my board exponentially. He is actually graded on the same tier. Oh, look at that. I have him highlighted. As he's right there with Amarius Mims. I love Blake Fisher. Jayden Hicks ends up going to the Buffalo Bills. He's a top-tier safety. I'm just not a fan of the safety class, and, I delay regrading my safeties until the end when I don't like them. But if I like the safety class, I usually regrade them earlier because I love defensive backs. Braylon Trice goes to the Detroit Lions. Excellent player. It just was so weird what happened with the Combine. I hope to God he gets back to where he was there at Washington. Ravens go Ricky Pearsall. Great value. They need another wide receiver, even though they've already invested so much in it. Niners go Brandon Dorless. I'd go after a more pure defensive interior like Mike Hall, who ends up going at 64 to the Chiefs. But Mike Hall, I think, is a little bit more explosive and a little bit more better built to be a defensive interior for the 49ers. And Brandon Dorless, low-key, is a little bit better for the Chiefs with his versatility. Round 3, we got Theo Johnson for the Panthers. At this point, I could be comfortable with a flexible, versatile tight end who's a hyper athlete. He's very, very fun to watch. Honestly, I know it's recency bias, but it is very fun to look back in retrospect and see the athlete he was actually on the field. Cardinals get Christian Haynes. They're actually killing it this draft. I love their draft so far. Commanders end up going Tommy Eichenberg. What did they do in the second, by the way? I feel like I skipped over that. Oh, they went Edgerrin Cooper. Super versatile. Yeah, they're killing it this draft. Commanders go Tommy Eichenberg. Just a little bit less inspiring, but a good linebacker nonetheless. And, you have some veterans there. This is a good guy to develop under him. Jalen Polk for the Patriots. Just a little bit uninspiring compared to some of the other amazing receivers, but he would be a very talented receiver in any other receiving class as well. So it's just, you lose a little bit of the glitter when everybody else is wearing fucking diamond suits, right? Then we got Peyton Wilson going to the Chargers. They need linebacker help. I'd be willing to take the risk at pick 69 all day. Giants go Tez Walker. He's super iffy for me. I like the frame. I love the speed. At the Senior Bowl, he was just really hot and cold, and I think the Giants fans deserve something that's a little bit more consistent, but still a good player, high upside. Cardinals go Marshawn Kneeland, one of my top 32 players in the draft. Big fan of him. And again, Cardinals are killing it. Jets go Troy Franklin. That's as good as you can ask. That's what happened in my 7-round mock draft. I think it was almost identical because I put Tali Fawaga to them, but I went tackle and then Troy Franklin in the 3rd. That's as good as you can ask. 73, the Lions go Andrew Phillips. Y'all know that Andrew Phillips is like my guy in the draft. I love him to death. Top 10 player. Obviously, the Detroit Lions take an absolute W there. The Falcons end up going Chris Braswell, edge out of Bama. That's good value, and this team needs an edge rusher. They got Marvin Harrison Jr., and they got Chris Braswell. I think that you could actually try to have something work out really well with that. And I think Raheem Morris is a guy who I trust to develop edge talent. You got the New York Giants going Christian Mahogany here. That's a good guy to develop. I think that, bringing Runyon on doesn't make it as pressing of an issue as it was, but still a very, very good player. Broncos go Cade Stover. This team has enough issues. Tight end's not something that you get good ROI for, but I've had bigger issues with other or not that many big issues in this draft. So the fact that I'm getting, noticeably disappointed by this pick shows that this draft actually has some form of logic to it, which is a nice breath of fresh air. Cam Hart then gets selected by the Raiders. Good physical corner. I think AP would love that. The Commanders end up going Jalen McMillan. You're getting a high-quality receiver here. I just think this class is so deep. You don't need to force it. And Jalen McMillan, he's a good player. I just don't know if I would consider him to be a top 100 guy on my board. Still very talented. Can put, when foot comes to turf, he actually is a very talented player. It wouldn't be a bad pick. I just maybe think that some of the other guys are a little bit better. Falcons then also get Chris Abrams-Drain. So I talked about corner. I talked about edge rusher. I have some better corners still on the board than Chris Abrams-Drain, but he's a kick-ass corner. I'd be fine with this. Bengals then end up going Brandon Rice. So talked about that wide receiver 1 before. I think Brandon Rice is extremely underrated. Good player. Jonah Ellis then becomes another DPR in that rotation for the Seahawks. Uchenna Nwosu essentially would be the guy who he's challenging for a role. I think that honestly their edge rushing core is better than what meets the eye, but Jonah Ellis is great value. Colts ended up going Kalen Bullock. You got, I'm forgetting his name, back on a 1-year contract, but this is a great pick for y'all. Pick 83, we got the Rams going Kyrie Jackson, big physical corner, fine by me. You got the Steelers going Jerry and Jones. We do need some slot help pretty desperately. We have Darius Rush in there right now. Jerry and Jones is an absolute dog. Then we got Dominic Pooney going to the Browns. I'm not a fan of Dominic Pooney personally, or let me just say I'm a fan of some other players a little bit more than Dominic Pooney, one of which actually being Caden Wallace, who he's actually going to be down at pick 60 or at spot 64 on my board. He's a really talented right tackle out of Penn State, but I think he should just be an interior offensive lineman because a little bit more comfortable over there. Texans then go Mason McCormick. He's a fun guy. I just ended up finishing my evaluation on Garrett Greenfield. Mason McCormick's just a fun dude to watch, though. And Texans, you have some flexibility in terms of developing him or starting him right away. Jonathan Brooks goes to the Cowboys at 87. They need a running back staying in Texas. Not a bad idea. Packers get their linebacker in Jeremiah Trotter. NFL lineage. Good kid. Just, back when he was supposed to be a first-round pick, not necessarily the best player on planet Earth. Javon Baker's a steal here, but I don't know if Buccaneers would be the best spot for him. But if they're trying to win now, it's a good player to go. Cardinals go Jarvis Brownlee. I freaking love Jarvis Brownlee. He is, I think, in my top 40 at number 39 on my board. He actually has the term dog next to his name. He is an absolute dog. Good player. Packers end up going Jalen Wright. He's a home run hitter. Actually is a little bit different than what they have on their roster right now. I think that's a good compliment. It's I have never seen that before. I think that's actually a good pick. Buccaneers go Austin Booker. A little bit too light for my liking, but, he'd be a certified DPR. Speaking of Garrett Greenfield, he goes to the Ravens at 93. I would still be looking for a different offensive lineman than Garrett Greenfield. I don't think he's ready to play just yet, and this team doesn't have good enough tackles to go after a project at 93. Niners go Johnny Wilson, wide receiver / tight end, because I think that could be a role that they end up grooming him for, but he's a fluid route runner, man. I think people are heavily underrating Johnny. Tylen Grable, he's actually one of the few players I have yet to grade from the tackle class, but he tested out like a freak. So I would love to see the Chiefs be able to test out a really high upside offensive tackle. I just think it's a little bit early based on, the fact that this is the first time I've ever seen it. Then we got Jacksonville going Jermaine Burton. This isn't the wide receiver one I'd go after. I think that's you're kind of screwing yourself over by going Jermaine Burton. Locker room problems, just overall not necessarily the guy who I'd want on my team. At 97, the Bengals go Roger Rosengarten. This dude's an absolute beast. He ended up, I think, yeah, he's at number 61 on my board. Dude's a freak show. If he ends up going to the Bengals, I think you get your actual starter there. Steelers go Cedric Van Pran. We need a center, perfectly fine value. And then the Rams end up going Spencer Rattler because I think they should go after a contingency plan for Matt Stafford. I think that's a great pick. And then ending this off, the Commanders go Cam Kitchens to develop for 1 year and hopefully become a little bit more athletic because his IQ is through the roof. It just, something was off this year. So I'm hoping he bounces back. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. I love y'all. See you on the far side.